Well, good evening and welcome to another edition of Cooking with Curry. Tonight we're going to make a farmhouse chicken and leek pie, something that is really wholesome, really tasty and really good cooking, all traditional ingredients. We're going to make everything from scratch, nothing's bought in a jar, we're not going to use bought pastry, we're going to make everything from scratch. So if I take you through the ingredients of what we're going to use. Basically we've got our leeks here, which we're going to fry and sweat down with a little bit of butter, and then to that later on we're going to add the chicken breasts, and we've got 4 chicken breasts, a little bit of salt and pepper seasoning to go with it. That's basically going to be the pie base, but we've got to put that in with a sauce, and the traditional French chicken and leek pie is using a roux sauce, which is basically using equal fats of flour in terms of weight. So you're probably looking at about 75 grams of butter there to just over a cup and a half of flour. You melt that down and then you add into that about half a litre of milk, so that gives you the creamy sauce, the base for the chicken and the leek. And once we start cooking that, you'll see how that interacts and goes together as a sauce, which when you bake the whole thing, it reduces down. On top of the chicken and leek pie, what you have is you have a shortcrust pastry, which is basically equal fat to flour, or you can slightly reduce it to about 2/3 fat to flour. So there we've got probably about 50 to 80 grams of flour, and probably about 50 grams of butter. What we do is we rub the butter into the flour, and then add a little bit of water to get the texture right, and then roll it out, and that becomes the pie lid to the chicken and leek pie. Within the base we've got a stock cube there, just melted down with a little bit of water, just to add a little bit more flavour. You can add vegetable stock, chicken stock, pretty much anything. So what I'm going to show you next is how to make the pie. Okay, for the preparation of the leeks, what we're doing is just putting a little bit of heat on the pan and the stove, melting the butter. We've got the leeks in there, fairly thickly chopped, rough cut, and we're just basically frying these just so that they develop a little bit of colour, soften down. However, having said that, once you put in the bechamel sauce, you stick everything in the oven for half an hour later on, the leeks will actually soften up in the bechamel sauce. So I'm not too bothered about them being ready for eating, as if it were, and the texture of them, they can stay, fairly rough at the moment, because they will soften down in the liquid of the bechamel sauce. So just frying these down, and I'll show you how these look after they've been roasted a little bit later on. Okay, the leeks are all cooked. As you can see, we've got a lovely deep caramelised flavour on the leeks. The butter really brings out a nice colour and nice flavour to the leeks, with a little bit of salt and pepper. The leeks now are not soft, they're still quite firm, so that when we add in the chicken and we simmer it all down with the pie crust on top, it'll soften down a lot more. So we still want these fairly firm and everything. That's just ready as it is at the moment. Now that the leeks are all done, what we're going to do is we're going to add into it the 4 chicken breasts, which have been seasoned and sliced. They're still fairly thick chunks of chicken. We want this to be a pie that's got lots of texture to it and everything, so we're going to just cook these for a little bit, and I'll show you how these are after they've been cooked to the level that we want. I'm only going to half cook them, because obviously when they go in the oven for half an hour, 200 degrees, they're going to cook more, and they're going to take in more of the bechamel sauce as well. Okay, we've been cooking the chicken for only a couple of minutes. We've got a lid on the top of the pan to allow it to steam its own juices. chicken's now started to change colour, started to go white on the outside, which means that it's getting to between 30 and 40% cooked. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take that lid off, and you can hear it sizzling and cooking away. And the cup of chicken stock that we had dissolved in a little bit of water, what we're going to do now is we're just going to add that in there and just let that stand. That is basically ready to go and ready to take the bechamel sauce now. I'm going to turn the heat off that and just let it stand in its own juices for a while with the lid on. Okay, now the chicken's cooked at the back. We just left that to stand in its own heat with the chicken stock in it. We're going to pay our attention now to the roux sauce. Roux sauce is used in so many different dishes. You can use it in pasta bake as your main sauce. You can add cheese into it to make it a macaroni cheese. It's used in a lot of other Italian recipes and Mediterranean recipes. You use it in between your lasagna as you're making the layers of food up. So what we're doing at the moment is the butter that we had, which is half fat to flour or 2/3 fat to flour in weight volume. We're just making that a liquid, and what we want to do is melt all of the butter and then have the flour as a suspension in the liquid butter as it is. You need quite high quantities of butter so that the flour stays as a liquid and it doesn't turn into complete paste. It's a mainstay of quite a lot of French cooking cuisine, and when you learn how to cook and you do cooking courses, making a good roux sauce, people are often judged on this quite highly or quite lowly, depending on how well they do on it. A lot of it is to do with the way that you do it, and you melt the butter in the corner of a pan, and you basically, as I'm doing at the moment, you stir in the flour gradually, bit by bit, and a good roux sauce should have no lumps in it whatsoever. It should remain fairly liquid, and then you add in the milk later on, and you reduce that and bring it down to the desired thickness that you want. Making the chicken pie so it can be fairly liquid, because obviously a little bit of it's going to be absorbed by the rest of the vegetables and the chicken and everything later on, but I'll show you how we get on later on. Okay, I'll give you a tip here to make a really good roux sauce. The butter, as you can see, is nearly all melted. It's all in a liquid suspension. It's all about the whisking. To get a roux sauce that is really fine and no lumps, basically you continue whisking and whisking and whisking and whisking. And as you can see here on the right hand side, the edge, it's starting to take the flour literally bit by bit and add it into the mixture. Just keep whisking, and lots and lots of whisking will make you a really fine roux sauce. And once you put in the milk, there'll be no lumps in that whatsoever. Just keep skimming away, adding a little bit more of the flour into it each time, and keep the whisking, keep it big. Big strokes through the whisk, just to keep nibbling away at that flour until it's all gone. Heat on the hob at the moment is really low. It's on the lowest setting you can get. Once you've melted the butter, the one thing that we don't want to do is burn it. You know your butter's burnt once the texture changes from, sorry, should I say the colour changes from a golden syrupy colour to like a browny yellow with black specks in it. If you have black specks in it, it means that basically what you've done is you've deep fried your flour granules in your butter, and your roux is basically an absolute write-off. So if you see black specks in your roux and it's not like a nice honey golden syrupy colour, it means that your roux, you might as well just stick it in the bin now. Okay, the roux, what we've now done is we've got all of the butter, we've not over fried it, we've got the all of the flour in there. It's really fine. It's probably taken about 10 to 15 minutes of whisking to get it to that constituency. It's hanging on the whisk. It's nice and soft. What we're going to do now is just slowly add in the milk, and then start whisking, more whisking, and get the roux down to the constituency that we want. Right, I've just added in probably about 300 ml of milk into the roux sauce, and as you can see, if you've got the flour and the butter mixture good to start off with, the milk will just basically start self-dissolving within that mixture. The whole constituency will change texture once the milk starts getting a little bit warmer. You can see it start to thicken up at the moment because the roux is now starting to stick basically to the whisk, and you can see this basically as we're whisking at the moment. So what we're going to do is just as it thickens up, just keep adding in a little bit more milk, you know, like 100 ml at a time, and just keep stirring it in until the point where the flour basically will absorb no more milk, and it won't thicken up anymore. That's basically the point at which your roux is ready to use. We're going to go for a fairly liquid roux on this one because it's obviously going to be absorbed with the vegetables and the chicken and everything, and the leeks. Probably going to add in a little bit more flour than, a little bit more milk than this at the moment, but probably not much more, maybe only another 100 ml, which should take us up to about half a litre of roux sauce to put onto the chicken and the rest of the vegetables. Okay, now we have this absolutely perfect roux sauce, really nice constituency. The chicken, what we're going to do is put the roux sauce into the chicken, give it a quick stir, and then we're going to put it into a casserole dish. Casserole dish will then put the pastry on top and then stick it in the oven for half an hour. So right, I'll put the chicken and the roux sauce together now. Okay, roux sauce poured basically into the chicken, and what we're going to do is just basically give this a stir now, and then transfer it over into the casserole pot once it's nice and smooth. So after that, I'll show you how to make the pastry. Okay, making the pastry, what we're going to do, the flour and the fat, we're just going to just basically rub these together, and it will make pastry at the end of it. Add a little bit of water to it just to keep it soft, and I'll show you how this looks once we've got it to a nice fine texture. Okay, pastry is pretty much made. Just rub the butter and the flour together, and it resembles now these fine sort of breadcrumby sort of textures. If the pastry when you're making it feels greasy, then just add in, you know, a little handful of more flour. But what we want it to resemble is this sort of breadcrumb texture. Pastry is an amazing thing because what you can do with this now, if I was making an apple crumble, this is basically what you sprinkle on top of stewed apples in the bottom of a tray. You just sprinkle this on, shove a load of sugar on top, and stick it in the oven. That is basically your crumble for apple crumble. You could stick oats in it, you know, a few other like things, pumpkin seeds or something, but that's basically your starting point of apple crumble as well. For this to be pastry, what we need to do now is turn this dry mixture into a wet mixture. Just going to add in probably about a cupful of water, and then that'll bind all this lovely breadcrumb sort of texture together, and it'll make it into a pastry that's rollable. Okay, the pie filling, what we've done is we've tipped that out into our cooking tray, our pie dish, whatever you want to use, casserole dish. Pastry mixture, we've added in probably about a cupful of water, enough water in there just to make it you know, firm enough to roll out. What we're going to do now is we're going to take this, put it onto a work surface that's floured. We're going to then roll it out and then put the pastry on top of the rest of the filling, and then put it into the oven. Okay, pastry now is looking pretty good. about ready to roll it. It's got a really good texture to it. It's really nice and smooth. What we're going to do now is we're just going to stick this on here, and we're going to roll it out. And we're going to make our lid to the pie. Might do a few other bits and bobs as well with it, and we'll just see how it goes. Okay, pastry is nice and evenly rolled out. It's probably about 4 or 5 mil thick. Now what we're going to do is we're just basically going to overlay this on the pie dish and put it into the oven. Quick tip here for you: make it nice and easy. You're just going to put a little bit of flour onto the actual pastry itself, and then to spread it, we're just going to literally just do this. And then what we can then do is we can use the rolling pin to take up the pie crust, and then we'll roll it out onto the actual pie dish in reverse to get the pie crust to sit on the top of the dish. With the pie crust leftovers, what we can do is we can knead them out, roll them out. We can make some strips, and what we're going to do with those is we're going to make a nice lattice work on the top of the pie. Beaten egg that we had before, what we'll do with that is we'll use a pastry brush. Every good chef should have a decent pastry brush in his list of tools, and what we'll do is we'll just use that, and we'll glaze the top. Then we'll put the pieces of lattice onto the top of the pie crust, and then we'll put it in the oven. One of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to leave the pie and the crust and everything and the pastry out on its own too long, because with the pastry and everything being made of butter, it will melt, it will degrade, and it'll start to thin out the longer you leave it in room temperature, because the butter and everything will start to melt. So what we'll do is we'll just get this glazed up and the lattice on, and we'll get this in the oven as soon as possible. Okay, lattice work done on the top of the pie there. Looks like it just needs a little bit more glaze on it, so we put a little bit more just beaten egg glaze onto that, and then after we've done that, we're going to put this into the oven, probably for about half an hour or so, maybe a little bit longer depending on if the pastry cooks quick or slow. We'll see how it goes. One of the things with pies is the science behind it, so let's talk a little bit about the science behind pies, because I don't think that a lot of people know actually what a pie is and why it was invented in medieval times. The science behind the pie was, and similarly a Cornish pasty, they wanted to design something that you could stick in an oven. It would keep the meat and the vegetables and everything dry for a day's work. You could stick it in the oven, and basically it would keep all of the meat and vegetables within it nice and moist, and it'd stop it from drying out. If you take the evolution of a pie to something like a Cornish pasty, they evolved that a little bit further. Basically, it was designed as its own sort of like sandwich box, as if it were, because the actual crust and everything that was made was to keep the meat and the steak chunks and vegetables inside, really moist. People were using dirty hands in the Cornish tin mines. They were eating with really dirty hands. So what they wanted something that would keep the food and the meat and veg and everything inside in really good condition. So the actual pastry itself, in terms of the Cornish pasty, is something that is seen as a sacrificial thing, and I think it's only in modern days where we actually decided that we'd be mad enough that we'd actually eat the pastry that it was cooked in. Originally, the pasty was designed to protect, the pastry was there to protect what was inside of it. Looking at the traditional pie like this, the science behind it is that you have the meat and the vegetables, which is still going to cook when we put it in the oven. We want it to cook, but putting it in the oven on its own, it would mean that the casserole, which it effectively is, would dry out. So what we make is we make this pie crust on top, which is a semi-permeable membrane. It allows a certain amount of moisture to leave the pie dish at a given rate, and basically it means that the food inside can still cook, but not totally dry out by the time it's finished cooking. So the pie crust traditionally was a method of basically slow cooking what was inside it, and people over time decided that the actual pastry was quite nice on its own as well, with the vegetables and everything that you were cooking inside. So this is in days, you know, before they had microwaves and things like that, where you could cook stuff from the inside out. And anyway, the pie crust, as you can see, it runs fairly deep all the way around the dish. What we've done is we've wrapped the whole of the pie dish in the pastry, so that we don't have any of the contents of the pie dish, not too much moisture escaping through the sides. So what we're going to do now is put it in the oven, be in there for about half an hour, and we'll see how it goes when it comes out. Okay, we're just going to cut through the pastry and take off the excess, and then after we've done that, we're going to just go through the crust and just see how the chicken pie's actually turned out. Just trim the excess of the pastry off, because it's done its job. It was a protective layer to keep all of the chicken and the vegetables inside just in really nice order. You can see the pastry is really nice. It's good. So give it a little trim. And just put that now to a slightly longer knife, and we'll just cut into the corner of the pie, and we'll dish it a little bit up and just see how it fares and how it comes out once we start dishing it up. So. Okay, this looks really nice. All of the sauces come out really well. It's absorbed a little bit more. It's nice and moist. Chicken's cooked. The leeks are well done, and yeah, I think this will be a really nice dinner. This, all of the crust and everything has kept the pie in really good condition, and if we want to, all of these little bits of the crust from the outside, we can serve with that, or we can eat them if you want to. But, yeah, quite pleased with that, the way it's turned out. So there's your pie for you too.